roads that take you into both parks and Forest Service campgrounds and so on, all around my constituency, and people use them regularly. So when we have the discussion about this, I'll be listening very keenly about how it is going to evolve. I'm also a little concerned about this, and I'm hoping to gain more clarification from the Minister when talking about this, that it authorised the Minister to establish a form of road closure notice to be published or broadcast, or both, in any manner considered to be appropriate, and how any manner considered to be appropriate is interpreted. For instance, if using social media in my constituency, Madam Speaker, that really wouldn't work because we have lousy internet connections. We've got internet connections, but not fast enough that people regularly use social media, particularly people in more rural communities, more remote communities. And in fact, I have been pushing the Minister for Labour and Citizen Services to address this seriously and ensure that we do get, when TELUS is bringing in its high-speed internet to all rural communities, it's 99% of BC, as promised by the Premier, that we are going to rural communities going to have real high-speed internet, that does include all of the North Island, that it's working with the current providers, that we do get high-speed internet. But I digress, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, so I'm hoping that on that part, the Minister will be looking at some of the traditional ways, newspapers, telephone, call people, put posters up, put notices up, both in community centres, in community halls, in schools, places where people gather, in libraries, some of that as well as in gazettes and so on. The member for Cowichan Valley, Madam Speaker, raised something very interesting in his remarks. He raised the fact that so many people have been talking about what's been happening in our forest sector. And I actually went to one of the BC GEU meetings on forestry, the one that was held in Campbell River last year. And it was a really, really interesting meeting, brought together a good cross-section of people who are very engaged in our forest, in our forest sector, in forestry, in the Forest Service, in forestry activities, in the industry. And as the member from Cowichan Valley said, some of the very good results, I mean, those reports, I'm sure the Forest Minister could access them if he wanted to, had some very interesting recommendations. Each group, we sat around, we had very healthy debates, we talked about things, and there were a number of recommendations that the Forest Minister, if he really wanted to start addressing the bigger problems rather than looking in a piecemeal approach, could very well take a look at this and look at some of the things that talk about the Commissioner, the forest health, the stewardship, some of the very basic things that people who are living and working. These are people who literally, they live and work forestry. They are working both within government services, they are working in the periphery, they're working with industry, they're living in these communities. This is their lifeblood. So if the Minister really wanted to address some of the bigger picture, even if he brings it back in various amendment forms, in more of like, okay, bring back piecemeal, but let's start addressing some of these issues, Madam Speaker, because I've got to say, after a while, there isn't much time. How long can you go on reducing a resource? How can you go on liquidating a resource until it is no longer there? And we all talk about climate change. I'm assuming that everybody in this chamber now, we've had the government side talking about climate change a few years ago. We've been talking about it for many years, that we realise the power of healthy growing trees for carbon sequestration. We realise the fact that we need to protect our environment, to nurture our environment, as well as to use it, to use our forests in the best possible way. And that's only going to come if we have healthy stewardship. And we don't have that. There could have been, in this 100th anniversary of the Forest Service, chance for this Minister to leave a legacy, to make a significant impact. We are so privileged in this House, and particularly if you become a government minister, to leave a mark. to leave something significant, to have something that in future years people will say, look what they did. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that amazing? This is what that government did. As I mentioned in my starting remarks, Madam Speaker, what this government minister is going to be leaving is a legacy, and what this government's leaving is a legacy of destruction. A legacy of a resource diminished, our resource diminished, our lands diminished, our forests diminished, Madam Speaker. We have a responsibility, Madam Speaker, which I wish this minister and this government would really address seriously. We have a responsibility for the land base. We have a responsibility for the environment, and we have a responsibility for our economy. We see that, people in my constituency see that every day. They live it, they breathe it. They look at the forest sector as the source for jobs. They see it as the source of jobs. They see it as where our communities grew from. We grew because of the forest sector. It's where we started, forestry and then fishing. Well, we don't have fishing anymore, Madam Speaker. That's really gone. And soon we're going to say we don't have forestry. We lost the fish. Look at the East Coast. Look at what's happening in the West Coast. We've lost that resource because of mismanagement. And now we are losing the forests. And that, Madam Speaker, is a tragedy. That, Madam Speaker, is a preventable tragedy. If this minister wanted to, even if he didn't want to leave a legacy, but even if he wanted to do the work of a Minister of Forests in the 100th anniversary of the Forest Service, he would look at this bill and say, okay, we'll deal with this, but we're going to do something significant. We're going to do something significant for our forest-based, for our forest health, for our forest-dependent communities. We're going to make sure that we are keeping jobs here in BC, using our resource, using it wisely. But, Madam Speaker, this minister's failed, and I think it's extremely sad. And with that, Madam Speaker, I'll take my place in this debate, cede the floor, and wish that the minister would look at things more broadly. Thank you, Madam Speaker.